that brief problem there. But anyway, welcome all to the Planning Committee. And our first item on the agenda is any apologies for absence? Anyone?
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillors Allen, Jeffrey and Nicola Matthews.
Okay. No others? No. Thank you. Item 2 then, any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests? Are there any? No? Thank you. Item 3 is the minutes to approve and sign the minutes to the previous meeting as a correct record. That's on pages 1 to 3. So I'll go to page 1. Page 2. And page 3. Somebody moves a true record, please. Thank you all. Right, item 4, any items for deferral and withdrawal? I know we have one, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as set out on the update sheet, we've had recent advice from NRW regarding the Carmarthen Bay and Estuary Special Area of Conservation and potential impacts of development on, in this case, nitrogen, and on some of the features of the SAC. As the first item drains into that feature, in view of the recent advice, we need some further information before we can report the application due for decision. So the application is being deferred today.
Okay, thank you. So then we move on to item 5, the determination of planning applications under the Town and Country Planning Act of 1990. And the first item then will be what would have been item 2 is on page 71, the Swansea Bay Sports Park. And it's over for you, David, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, item 2 on the agenda, as we said, is the Sports Village at Sketty Lane. So this is part of the campus project for Swansea Bay City Deal, and aims to bring together and advance innovation in sport, health and well-being. So it's basically a partnership bringing expertise from the NHS, Swansea University and third-party industrial partners. So there's currently no hub for sports technology in Wales, and with no significant sports innovation hub in the UK either. So the opportunity exists to create a facility for innovation and collaboration between sport-related commercial tenants and academia. So the proposed development will create approximately 2,000 square metres of dedicated research and innovation space and aims to accommodate about 120 employees. So the first image on the screen, as you can see, this is the Swansea Singleton Hospital and the university, and you obviously got the athletics.
Sorry, Chair, can I just declare personal interest? And I hadn't realised my wife works at Swansea University, so yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
So that's fine. Athletics track on National Swimming Pool, obviously on your left-hand side. So the site of this application is labelled number 2 on the screen. So it's currently occupied by a sports pavilion, which will be demolished as part of the scheme. So it'll be replaced by a 4-storey mixed-use life science wellbeing sports building, split-level building using the topography of the site. Entrance will be from the north of the building, and so it'll be a contemporary design building finished with a combination of cladding, lower brickwork at ground floor. And then the main design, we'll go through the presentation in a minute. The main design is effectively a floating cuboid, which is basically on the south elevation, overlooking the views towards sports track and field. So next slide, please, Ian. So obviously that's the existing building on the site, sports building, which you're familiar with. So as I say, that's to be demolished, and the ancillary structures as well. And the next image. So obviously, yeah, that's a different image, obviously from passing traffic. So it's a prominent building. It's not listed. We'll go through the quality of the building through the report. So there's no constraint to its demolition, if you like. Okay, and the next image, please, Ian. So obviously that's the application site. So obviously the blue is the surrounding land. The red obviously is our application site. And the next slide, please. So again, that's the existing footprint. So obviously you can see it's very much going to be replaced on the existing site, and the existing small ancillary structures will be demolished as well. On the next one, so obviously the pink now obviously is our proposed replacement building. And as we go through them, so these are, so the layout on the next one shows car parking access. So that's basically the basement and the ground floor level. So you've got the lower ground floor level and you just see the entrance at the top. So that'll be the entrance at sort of ground level if it's 0-1, if you like. So basically you can see there's basically a mixture of workshop, seminar space, laboratory facilities, and it's a basic office space. On the next two of the upper floors. There we go. So you got sort of open space, laboratory, tech type space, and the last one, the two elevations. So obviously the glazed south frontage overlooking the athletics track and the Swansea Bay, and the next one, and the next one. There we go. So that's obviously a CGI of the finished product with obviously the glazed frontage. Obviously you can see the shape of the building. So it's got a very contemporary frontage overlooking the south elevation. Okay, so if we go through the principal issues with the application. So in terms of the principle of development plan policy. So this is laid out obviously in full in the report, but Future Wales planning policy Wales and the local plan policies all aim to retain substantial office, academic, education facilities into existing centres, city centres, to obviously to generate the city centres. So obviously this isn't a designated zone. So obviously it is specifically at this location because obviously it's linked to the sports village and the existing facilities. So you got the various life science buildings in Singleton Hospital. So obviously there's a collaboration between this facility and those existing facilities. So in regard to its requirement to be sited at a specific location, I think there is a justification to not adhere to those policies, to basically town centre first policies. So it's regarded to be in accordance with development plan policies for both Future Wales and the local development plan policies. Okay, so in terms, as I mentioned, heritage, so the existing building will be demolished. It's of limited heritage value. It's been assessed by CADU and there's no objections to it being replaced and its impact on the local area. So there's no objections from a heritage point of view. As I say, we've touched on the design aspects of it. It's overtly contemporary time development. Specifically designed, obviously, it's for the plot. And with the principal design feature obviously being the glazed frontage, which obviously is appropriate to look over the sports village, the playing fields area. So in placemaking terms, it's obviously be deemed to be acceptable. Highways issues, application has been supported by transport statement and travel plan has assessed the existing vehicle access and traffic to be generated by the development. Obviously, access will come through the existing junction on Sketty Lane, which shares with Singleton Hospital, and obviously the lower junction, which obviously with Mumbles Road. Those both roads are obviously very busy, highly trafficked, but obviously it's been assessed and it's not considered to have any impact in terms of vehicle traffic on those junctions. In terms of car parking, again, that's been assessed in the report. It's not intended to provide any additional parking. It will use existing car parking facilities in the vicinity, both to the north of the site and which are shared with the National Swimming Pool. And on that basis, it's deemed to be acceptable from parking generation point of view. From a local highway point of view, they have assessed the application. They agree with the conclusions of the transport assessment and parking assessment. There's been some issues which have been agreed basically with regards to servicing waste collections. Again, the car parking, loss of some car parking on site, disabled cycle parking, EV charging is all provided and all will be conditioned. Construction method statement will be conditioned, etc. There is an issue which obviously it's been highly reliant on public transport and active travel because of the we're not providing any additional parking, as we say. Having regard to those issues, the existing pedestrian facilities, both on the Sketty Lane junction and the lower junction on Mumbles Road, are found to be deficient. So obviously, with regards, we're generating more activity at this location. So I think there is a justification for an off-site highway contribution, Section 106 contribution, which together equates to £60,000 to update either junction up to a standard to accommodate the existing use active travel, so both by cyclists and by pedestrians. Green infrastructure biodiversity, there's no real issues there. There's one tree which will be removed, which is sycamore of poor quality, and it'll be replaced within the new landscaping. So ecologically, it's acceptable. So in conclusion, this is a campus project, part of Swansea Bay City Deal, brings together an advanced innovation in sport, health and well-being, drawing expertise from NHS, Swansea University and third parties. So that there's deemed to be an acceptable policy exclusion, if you like, to be located at this location in conjunction with existing life science buildings and in accordance with the objectives of the city deal. So as I say, recommendation is for approval, subject to the 106 for the off-site highway contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, David. We've got two speakers here, with Liam Brown and Robert Johnson. Are you with us?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to speak?
I've got nothing to say. We're here on behalf of Tom Grono from Swansea University. Rob Johnson. Maybe.
Yeah, we've got no comment to date. Thank you.
Thank you both. Yeah, I got sorry, Councillor Jones.
Can I just raise a point about the car parking and the I was looking at page 79, but you've referenced it throughout the report, and it says about the concerns about the loss of 15 spaces, which I agree are not used very often because it's quite difficult to actually get into them. But I actually use the pool once a week, and the actual pool parking is quite busy because of the overflow from Singleton Hospital. Because if people can't park in the hospital, they actually pay to park across the road in the pool car park. And especially now, last week there was a gala on in the pool, so you get an awful lot more. I mean, I agree with what's happening. I just don't think that they've taken into account any extra car parking that will be needed, because as we all know, Morrison's just as bad, I have to admit. The car parking at hospitals is quite chronic, and because we're losing the 15, we're not gaining a 15, but we would have needed to gain probably a bit more, and I don't know if that can be addressed. I'm not going to vote against it because I think it's a good thing. I just don't think they've given enough thought to car parking when there are things on, especially in the Wales National Pool, which obviously we want to have events there. It's our national pool. So I don't know if you can go back and ask them to try and find some more spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Yes, just one observation in regards to the traffic and traffic increase on that road there. As you know, halfway down there, we've got the actual entrance into Home Farm, where we get plant obviously going in and out. Are there any perhaps indications of perhaps looking at if there any additional improvement in the signage regarding that entrance going in is needed?
Anyone else wish to speak?
I know it's the top end of the road, but still we've got that traffic avenue and coming through the, the junction there.
Sorry, Mike. Anyone else? No? Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that they are losing 50. I think their operational spaces more than anything that they're associated with the pavilion. So yeah, they are being lost. They're not being replaced. The application is being submitted with a parking note. So obviously they've done a survey of the parking. I agree. At certain times it can get busy, can't it? I think so. I think that the point they're making is that generally there is space available. That's maybe throughout the day, but as you say, at peak times it probably gets quite congested. So hence, obviously, what was explained to us these days is that a lot of the university and the NHS staff actually work from home. So obviously that's accounted for a reduction in demand. That's not to say there is a lot of demand. There is obviously at this location, but it's obviously been assessed and deemed to be able to accommodate the parking from this development. So home farm access, as I say, the junction has been assessed by transport assessment, which has been able to accommodate the traffic from this junction. Whether I'm not quite sure if they've assessed the junction from home farm, to be honest with you. We have looked at home farm as a pre-application, notwithstanding this application. So my view would be that if that comes forward for any further development in the future, that's going to have to address itself, basically. So.
Okay, thanks, David. No one else wish to speak? No? Okay.
Chair,
Thank you.
shall I just respond to Councillor Jones's comments?
Oh, sorry,
as well?
Amanda. Yes, of course. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, they did within the parking note that Dave referred to. They did also indicate that at times of special events, etc., galas, then they have got access to the staff car park in association with Singleton Hospital. So they have got capacity for, a good few hundred spaces as and when the staff car parking is not being used for staff car parking, which is in the week. So at the weekend, there is capacity. There was a parking note submitted and they identified the car park to the north of the site and also made reference to obviously the paid display facilities down at Sketty Lane, as well as the national car parking space itself. And with respect to Councillor White, the home farm access wasn't assessed in any detail because it was remote enough from the main access into the site that it wasn't considered that any traffic would have any impact on that junction. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Councillor Jones?
It's just a correction, sorry. The last two galas have been on Thursday, Friday and the weekend. And obviously nursing staff can't stay at home to work. They have to go into work. So, and staff car park, I mean, I pass there every day, as you obviously realised. And the staff parking, they're always looking for spaces. They're parked all along the side, wherever. So it's not only at weekends they have the galas. That's the point I'm trying to make. But obviously, if you're happy, then as I said, I'm not going to vote against it. I just thought they may be able to find some more spaces.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Lewis?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say that I used to use this building, the existing building, quite a lot in the 80s. And at that time, it looked very old and tired then. So I'm completely in agreement with giving permission for this new building to be erected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I got no other hands up wishing to speak, so we can take the vote on that. Who would you do the honours, please?
Okay, all those in favour, if you can indicate.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, call. If you would. You are.
Sorry, I was dragged in last minute for this. Apologies for that. It's not
I
me.
told you who.
I know it's my fault. Apologies. Councillor Meyer Baker.
4.
Peter Black.
4.
Phil Downing.
4.
Mary Jones.
4.
Mike Lewis,
4,
Mark Tribe,
4.
Mike White,
4.
and Andrew Williams,
4.
and Paul Lloyd.
And 4. Thank you.
That's unanimous.
Right, thank you very much. And then, excuse me, moving on to the next item on our agenda, is item 3, page 105, and that's at Pant Street. I guess you, isn't it? Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, the presentation isn't allowing us to share it.
Please.
Whilst we're working on that, Chair, I'll just give an overview of the
Yeah.
application. So this application is reported to committee following a call in by ward members and the objection threshold being met. The property is a mid-terrace, 2-storey, 3-bedroom house, and the proposal involves a change of use from a 3-bedroom house to a 4-bedroom HMO. So internally, thank you. So there's a location plan of the site. So you can see it's a mid-terrace property. And there's the aerial photograph showing the site in relation to surrounding streets. So this is the existing internal layout of the property. You'll note first floor is 3 bedrooms. On the ground floor, reception room, lounge, dining room, kitchen and bathroom. So first floor doesn't change in the proposal, but on the ground floor, there's a proposal to change an additional bedroom at ground floor level and then reconfigure the remaining rooms to provide a lounge, a kitchen, utility room and bathroom. Statutory consultees haven't objected to the application, but there's been a lot of public interest and we've had 54 letters of objection, details of which are set out in the report on page 112, and also a 90 signature petition. So in terms of the principle of development, as you'll be aware, the council has a policy for HMOs, and in terms of the concentration test, as the report sets out, the concentration within 50-metre radius of the site doesn't exceed the 10% threshold in the policy. This is the first property, as the plan shows you on the screen. So the threshold of 10%, this is 3.13% of the properties within 50 metres of the site. In objections, they have raised concerns over concentration, but there's been no specific properties identified within this threshold. In terms of visual amenity, there's no external alterations proposed to the property. There will be, if members approve it, the requirement to provide refuse store and cycle store, but there's sufficient room within the curtilage at the rear, so there wouldn't be any unacceptable impacts on visual amenity. In terms of residential amenity, obviously the property is currently a 3-bedroom house. There could be more than 3 occupiers in the property. If this application is approved, there's a recommendation that the number of occupiers be limited to 4, and it's not considered that this would raise any significant issues in terms of noise and disturbance above the lawful use of the property. In terms of highway issues, the demand for parking for the existing and proposed use is the same, so there's no increased demand for parking. And in terms of ecological enhancement and biodiversity, the application has been accompanied by a green infrastructure statement appropriate to the development, and ecological enhancements could be secured by condition if approved. So in summary, Chair, the proposal complies with council policy for HMOs in the area, and whilst noting the significant local objection to the application, it's not considered there are any grounds to refuse the application and approval is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I got first off is Craig Thomas. Is he with us, Craig?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. You've got 5 minutes, Craig. Thank you very much. If you'd like to address the committee.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, all. I'm just speaking on behalf of the street chair. And as much as just said about the parking, etc., the street as it is in general, there is no parking currently. So for another 4 people to go into that property with potential another 4 cars, how it's just going to cause a huge problem. Even though it only states there's only 1 HMO that will be in the street, there's 2 houses that currently got a lot of people staying in. Each have got a vehicle. There's a house at the bottom of the road, even though it's addressed as Wernvow Road. The front door is actually on Pant Street, and there's 5 occupants in there, which all have a vehicle. So parking facilities are absolutely horrendous, to the extent of our bins don't get collected on a regular basis because the wagons can't get down the road because the street is so full of cars. These are cars from other streets as well parking there. There's been problems with emergency services getting down in the streets because of the parking. So whereas it was just said that parking shouldn't be a problem, actually parking's a massive problem. Also, HMOs, who are we having in the street? We're a very close community over here. The street itself is a very close-knit street with kids playing quite often up and down the street. And I just feel that turning this house into HMO could in turn affect the way the kids play in the street, because that is a current problem in the Port Ennant St Thomas area. Again, the other streets, there's an Airbnb in a different street. They are blocking the lanes currently that can allow emergency services, etc., to use them. So, I know this house, to turn that into a 4-bedroom is not, for me, is not very applicable. So I think I'm answering most of the questions I've been asked here. I just want to get across as well that the buyers of the house have stated in the application that they had permission, or they went round to the residents and said, would it be okay to put an HMO there? And he has stated that yes, they did. I can confirm that this is not true. And I just don't think it's fair, guys, that people, businessmen who are just coming round with consortiums are buying up property in Port Ennant just to better their portfolios. They don't care who they put it in the houses. They are happy to have their money in their pockets. They don't care how it affects the residents. They don't care how it affects anybody. And quite honestly, this has not been received well in the street whatsoever.
Okay,
So
thank you. Yeah.
That's all I have at the moment. Sorry, guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And Mr. White is with us. So, yeah, if you'd like to address the committee now, please, with your 5 minutes. Cheers.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Thomas White. I'm a local lad from Sketty. I'm a firefighter based in Sketty Station. This is my property business I've just started and looking to start my first house of this property. So I'm looking to convert 14 Pant Street into a 4-bed HMO. I'd like to address 4 key points to support my application. First point, local housing need and scale. The proposal delivers a modest 4-bed HMO that meets genuine local demand in Port Ennant, especially for young professionals, key workers and students. It does so without introducing a large HMO development that would significantly alter the character of the neighbourhood. My second point is over-concentration and community balance. While I respect the officer's concern about potential over-concentration, the property is located in an area that is not already saturated with HMOs. Indeed, I have reviewed local data, and adding a single, well-managed 4-bed HMO here would not result in the imbalance the policy targets. Unlike multiple unit HMO schemes, this is a small-scale conversion that fits within the existing residential pattern. Point number 3, parking and transport mitigation. We understand concerns about increased parking demand. To address this, I have committed to the following measures. All tenants will be made aware that on-street parking is limited and tenancy agreements will discourage car ownership. The property is located within close walking distance of regular public transport links and local amenities, making it ideal for tenants without cars. Sorry?
Sorry. Carry on.
Sorry?
I will provide secure indoor storage for bicycles to promote sustainable travel as part of the Welcome Pack and tenancy agreement. Tenants will be required to sign a car-free declaration as a condition of tenancy to avoid overspill parking issues. Point number 4, high standards and responsible management. I am fully committed to exemplary property standards, including fire safety, sound insulation and responsible tenancy management, consistent with council guidance and licensing requirements. My management plan and tenancy policies ensure regular maintenance and safety checks, clear rules to prevent disturbance, for example, quiet hours and no indoor smoking, and fast response to any concerns raised by neighbours. Through proactive management, I intend to integrate the property into the surrounding community completely without causing disruption. In summary, this application is for a single, well-maintained 4-bed HMO. It will help provide much-needed shared housing without contributing to area-wide over-concentration. Have in place effective management controls to safeguard both tenants and neighbours, and practical measures are in place to minimise any parking pressures. Thank you for your time and careful consideration. I'm happy to respond to any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much. I've got 2 ward members now if they wish to address us. Councillor Gwilym, do you want to go first?
Yes, please, Chair, if you
Okay,
if you don't
you
mind.
have 3 minutes.
Yeah. So firstly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of residents in our community. Over the last 10 years especially, we've seen a significant rise in HMOs and the associated challenges that comes with having them. Many of the tenants are transient and have no affiliation with the community. There have been parties, rubbish, vermin, parking issues, parking obstructions. These are all felt by neighbouring properties, the residents, who are often inconvenienced, disturbed and left feeling frustrated, frightened in some cases and upset. We continue to work with council departments and partner agencies to tackle these associated issues, but there are no quick fixes and the impact ultimately, as mentioned, is felt by residents in our community. Most of these properties are bought up by landlords who are out of the area with no affiliation to the community and are buying up housing stock, pushing families 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation out of the area, where they lose vital support networks of family connections. Landlords are pushing up rents to unaffordable rates. They can charge per bedroom as opposed to one flat monthly rate, and it is felt that profit becomes before people and community. It can prove very difficult to contact landlords to tackle issues, with many residents coming to myself or my colleague, Councillor Hale, for help to trace them. Specifically in relation to Pan Street, these are terraced, narrow streets with small houses and kitchens. The gardens are quite compact. We have had issues with vermin and parking. We experience regular access issues with refuse trucks unable to get into the street due to parking obstructions, despite us having funded yellow lines at the top of the street. This is then left down for days, sometimes weeks, before the refuge trucks can return. The parking saturation on this street is one of the most challenging in the St Thomas ward. It is, as mentioned, a narrow street with limited parking. I feel that having another HMO, particularly on this street, will have a detrimental impact and add to the already challenging issues residents are facing. I would implore the committee to please consider turning down this application. And I'd just like to credit Craig, who spoke really well on behalf of the street and his neighbours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hale?
Yeah, can I just thank Craig as well and thank Hayley for her comments. Yeah, it just goes to show how little Mr. White actually knows about the community that he wants to move into, because what we actually housing in Port Tennant and St Thomas and not HMOs. And there's one thing that we can absolutely guarantee, that another HMO, you've heard from Mr Thomas, that there are already several properties in Pant Street which are not classed as HMOs and possibly are not HMOs, but they're so we've got a degree of letting within Pant Street, and I think that's above the norm at the moment. But so, there is one thing we see, and different authorities have recognised this as well, because they do give pros and cons in their planning guidance. And one nearest, not far away, I won't mention it, but not far away, will say categorically, if a HMO application is made, you must be mindful, more cars, more noise, more rubbish, more antisocial behaviour. And that's what we have witnessed since we've had the university next door to us. We've seen it right the way across the ward. Nothing is going to change that. On the cars themselves and the vehicles, we have, as you've heard from Mr. Thomas and Councillor Gwilym, we have had significant issues with rubbish collections. All the issues, all these problems with rubbish collections and parking problems are a matter of record. So at this juncture, what I would like to ask the planning committee is that these could be investigated, because I'm really concerned we're going to have some sort of issue on Pant Street, whether it be an accident to an adult, a child, God forbid.
You've lost you now, Councillor Hay.
Because I'm going to ask that this planning application be set aside, if you could, and okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay then. Oh, Councillor Black. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just put my hand up. Thank you, Chair. I've got a great deal of sympathy with the residents and the local councillors. I represent an area of largely terraced housing as well. We've got HMOs popping up in those too. Some of them are causing problems, some of them aren't. The issue we have as members of the planning committee is we have a policy in place which was put in place precisely to try to alleviate the concerns which came about with an over concentration of HMOs, particularly around the Brynmill area, but also sneaking towards the new campus as well. And unfortunately, the application in front of us complies with that policy. So really, there is no good planning ground to turn this down. So I understand the issues. I understand the issues of parking, of antisocial behaviour, of poor rubbish management. It's happened in my ward as well. I've also had completely the opposite in my ward, where HMOs have been better managed. But I do think that we've got our hands tied here by a policy which we all agreed not so long ago, simply because we wanted to try to manage the spread of HMOs around the city. And for that reason, Chair, I feel I have no choice but to vote for it.
Yeah, we're looking at the house itself and the plans, then that's big enough to accommodate this. But what I haven't been convinced of is the outside. The waste receptacles, the bike stores. There is no back lane that I can see on the plan. So everything comes through the house. So until you can convince me that when families live in these terraced houses, the mother or father takes responsibility to get the waste out. Here you've got people telling other people, oh, you've got to take this rubbish out, you've got to take that rubbish out. And in the end, the rubbish doesn't get put out. And then we get complaints then of vermin and everything else. So I'm not convinced about the actual size of the outside. The inside I'm happy with, but the outside. And parking on the road is parking on the road. You go to any ward you want to and everybody's arguing over parking on the road. And if you've got a drive, they'll park in front of it. So it's a case of first come, first serve. But yeah, if you can convince me about the outside, then I've got nothing to argue about, really.
Don't do.
Yeah, that's anyone else, Chair.
Yeah. Sorry, does anyone else wish to speak? Can't see anyone on the screen. Oh, sorry, Mark, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I think everyone's well aware of my opinion about HMOs by now. But I'm glad to see some thought to be put into this application in regards to car ownership. We can adhere to that, and I don't see any reason to turn it down. The restrictions on car parking, it makes a difference for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Dowen touched on it in his comments, really. It's about management, because the existing property doesn't have access to the rear. the rubbish has to be brought through the house to be put out front. That doesn't change with the current position. It's about the landlord ensuring it's managed properly. There's licensing requirements. If the properties are not being maintained properly, licensing potentially could get involved. So from our point of view, there's no significant difference in the way the rubbish would operate if it's done as it should be done. And we can't control the behaviour of individuals within a property, but that's where the management comes into it, and they would need to take steps if it wasn't being properly done. Just touching back to, I think, Councillor Black's comments about the policy, that was brought in when the legislation changed to put HMOs into a different use class. The research that led to that change of use said up to 10% was an acceptable mix within communities. St Thomas, this area, has a 10% threshold. Because of the existing situation in places like Bryn Mill, that's 25%. So the policy is there to manage the number of properties and to restrict over concentration within areas. And as I mentioned earlier, this proposal does comply with that policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good. No one on screen wishes to speak. Anyone else? No. Oh, Councillor Baker, sorry.
My concerns are if they are students coming into the HMO, you get visitors. Guaranteed you get your parents coming to visit. You'll have cars then, more cars on Pant Street. If it could be written into the tenancy, if you got visitors, please park out of Pant Street, which can be put on a piece of paper for the tenants to sign. Because at the end of the day, I do know Pant Street because my other half's family all lives up there, and it is heavy with cars, with families with cars. They don't want to see any more cars on that street, and especially they're afraid of HMO, there's going to be 4 cars, 5 cars, plus when family visits, 2 or 3 cars, loads of family coming to visit. So I can see where the tenants are saying about parking. You can see it. So they've got to realise, these new tenants got to realise if they sign that piece of paper, there's no parking available, not even for visitors. They got to park elsewhere. That's all.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to confirm for all members, really, the tenancy agreement wouldn't be able to limit the visitors from parking on the street. If it's a highway, it wouldn't. Any person is entitled to park there, whether they were a visitor or the tenant of the HMO. So that it wouldn't be able to restrict it in that way. I suppose a further point: if it was a 3-bedroom residential house, they could have visitors as well, and possibly a number of cars as well. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Okay, no one else wishing to speak. We can move to the vote on that, and the recommendation there is to approve. So, who, please?
Peter Black.
4.
Ben Downing.
Abstain.
Oh.
Lewis.
Sorry, Councillor Mike Lewis.
4.
Sorry, my mic was off. Apologies. Yeah. Councillor Mark Tribe.
4.
Councillor Mike White.
4.
Councillor Andrew Williams.
4.
Councillor Paul Lloyd.
4.
So that's 8, 4 and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you all. That's carried. And then the next item on our agenda is item 4 and page 119, and that's the St Helens ground. And David.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, item 4, St Helens. In the first instance, I'd like to bring your attention to the update sheet. That includes a late objection from our drainage engineer regards the suitability of the submitted drainage statement. The revised drainage statement has since been submitted, and we are happy with that. That satisfies the surface water concerns, the requirements of under 1015 in respect of a drainage requirement statement, and subsequent SAB approval. So we're happy that's been satisfied. So further correspondence from NRW, largely in response to the submission of a revised flood consequence assessment, which they requested was submitted, and they're happy from the flood risk issue from the development. So that's that. There's also report verbally, 2 late letters of correspondence of objections, effectively. One is actually signed by the Scarlet Supporters Trust, and one is from an individual. Identical letters. Essentially, the main points of objections relate to conflict with Future Wales Statutory Development Framework, fails the Sustainable Development Principles and the Wellbeing Future Generations Act, offers no compelling economic or public interest justification, and risks harming both facilities. Doesn't say what both facilities are, wasting public money and breaching trust with taxpayers. Anyway, so there's nothing in there which sort of undermines the conclusions of the planning report. And we're satisfied basically that the proposal, as outlined in the report, satisfies development plan policies and planning policy Wales. So we'll go through the report and the presentation. So in the next slide, please, Ian. So just to give you some background, obviously you're all familiar with St Helens. So I just like to point on this slide, obviously, the orientation as is of the rugby field. You can see the cricket square, North Bank clubhouse, the boundaries of the site, the white box, obviously the south at the bottom is the south stand. And there's a vehicle access from the southeast corner of the site opposite the patio pavilion, and there's an existing car park. So I'd just like to point out at this stage that the clubhouse is not affected by the proposals, and substantially the boundaries of the site won't be affected apart from some alterations, some improvements. So we'll go through the development as is. So essentially, as background to this application, it's obviously been submitted by the Ospreys Rugby Club, but it's essentially a joint venture between the Ospreys, the university, and the council, and it forms part of the, again, that's the wider campuses project as part of the sports village development, and obviously it's to develop an elite facility here for playing rugby, essentially. So as you're all familiar with the ground, obviously this has been the home of Swansea Rugby Club and Cricket Club since it opened in 1873. It's got historic significance, obviously. It's hosted international matches in the past. Lots of historic fixtures have taken place here, both rugby and cricket. So, as I say, the intention is for the ground to be played by the Ospreys Rugby Club, but it will be shared by the White Swansea Rugby Club and obviously Swansea University. And also it will be available for wider use for, I don't know, international age grade under 18s matches, those type of facilities, etc. So if we go on to the next slide, please, Ian. So again, just to show what we're talking about, the red line obviously is the boundary as it shows. The clubhouse is within the red line, but that's been maintained. The north bank is being retained. We'll go on to the detail, and obviously the red line follows effectively the stone boundary wall across the existing site. So on the next slide, please, yeah. So there's trying to show the demolition. So the green box obviously is the south stand, which will be taken away and potentially reused as the stand at the western end of the ground. There's some works in purple, which onto the north west of the site, which is retaining wall just to accommodate the works, and there's some small sheds and structures in the ground. The existing floodlights will be taken away, be replaced, and obviously the big purple or mauve rectangle is the existing pitch. which will be replaced. The existing grass pitch will be replaced by a 3G facility, and it'll be reorientated, which we will show you as we go through the slides. So next slide, please, Ian. So again, just to go on to what the development comprises. So effectively, we have a hybrid application, which means that phase 1 is a full application and phase 2 is an outline application. So effectively, everything in green is phase 1, and the blue is the training barn, which is basically the phase 2. So that's submitted as an outline application. There would need to be a further reserve matters application further along the road. But the full application is essentially to reorientate the pitch, which you see on the slide. So that will effectively be a 3G pitch. And then you'll see the stand enclosures, west end, eastern end, the south stand, and also, which it doesn't quite show there on that slide, the north bank will be covered with a new canopy, effectively. So it'll be an enclosed structure. So effectively, so we'll go through the full application in detail. So let's say 3G pitch. We'll have new stands. The northern terrace will be a new canopy, which will be a standing area, sort of roughly to accommodate 3,800 people. The overall capacity, as I mentioned in the report, I think is at 8,000 approximately. At the western end, obviously, there'll be the southern stand will be dismantled and reorientated, accommodate roughly about 1,000 people. Eastern stand, which is roughly where the cricket square is, so it'll be about 1,000 seats. And then the southern stand. So on the southern stand, obviously is the stand nearest to Mumbles Road. There's two options being submitted for this. The first one, as indicated on that screen, is the preferred option and the bigger option. So if we go through the slides, please, Ian. Again, so obviously that's a detailed layout of the scheme. So that actually shows option B for the south stand. So we'll go into the detail, but essentially, south stand is preferred option, 2-story with accommodation, hospitality, change rooms, facilities. So it's a squatter stand in terms of length, but it's a much higher stand. So we'll pull up the elevations in a minute. And then the option B, if that doesn't materialize, is the slightly longer stand, but it'll be a much smaller single stand with no real facilities accommodated within it. In that context, if the smaller stand gets built to accommodate those lost facilities, if you're in terms of hospitality, etc., then they could be accommodated within the training barn facility, which will be the detailed application as we go along. Okay, so additional facilities are a fan zone, which will be the area just to the north of the training zone, of training barn, sorry. That'll be an enclosed structure, just obviously for fans to utilize before the games and after games, etc. There'll be a small shop in that location as well. As I said, replacement floodlights. So you've got, at the minute, you've got one large floodlight, which is in the north corner, which is 45 meters, which is quite a local landmark. So that'll disappear. The other 3 columns are at the corners of the ground, 25 meters, so they'll be replaced by a completely new floodlighting system, and we'll go on to that in a minute. Access, there's a small car park at the south of the site, which would utilize the existing access from Gorse Lane, which will be improved to accommodate large vehicles for things like outside broadcasts. You've got the big BBC vehicles, etc. So obviously they'll come into the site to be accommodated when the game being shown, etc. And that space is about 100 car parking space, which essentially will be operational space for the facility. Existing pedestrian accesses, all historic entrances into the ground, some of them are being closed off. They'll all be retained and reopened. And in the additional one on the southern access along Mumbles Road will be a new facility, a new access in and out of the site as well. That also will accommodate, there'll be lots of toilet facilities. They'll also accommodate ticket sales office as well. And there is facilities, separate facilities for wheelchair spectators as well, specific facilities at various points within the ground. As I say, the outline application, phase 2, essentially that will be a training facility, ancillary facilities with sort of team rooms, physiotherapy rooms, etc., team changing rooms, etc. As I say, if the preferred option for the hospitality in South Stand doesn't go ahead, then there is the option for match changing rooms to be accommodated within phase 2 of the barn as well. Okay, so as I say, the clubhouse facility will be retained. So even though it's within the red line, that's not being affected, and obviously that will be retained as an important facility for the ground. Okay, so if we could just go scan through this to finish the presentation before we go through the main issues. So the next slide, please, Ian. So that is the preferred option for the South Stand. As you can see, it's shorter in length, but obviously much higher in height. And as I say, within that, the building envelope, obviously that will accommodate the changing rooms. And on the first floor, there's options for hospitality bars, etc. And the next slide. So obviously, so that's the that's the eastern stand. Obviously, that will be the south stand replaced. That's the Mumbles Road end, sorry, Mumbles End. So obviously, you can see this mirrors the existing stand. And the next slide, Ian. So obviously, that's the west stand, which obviously is on the Cricket Square town end, if you like. Obviously, again, single structure, all seated. Next slide. So obviously this is the existing North Bank, which obviously is standing at the minute. So obviously, historically, that's where the majority of supporters were facilitated. So obviously this is being retained. So this is be a stand-in area. And as you see, it'll be covered by the canopy for obviously inclement weather conditions. And the next slide, please, Ian. So this is a perspective. Obviously, this is driving along from Mumbles Road. So obviously you can see the scale of the preferred stand, south stand. Obviously we'll go into the report. What I would mention, obviously, this will be a new landmark feature, if you like, for the ground. But as you will remember, obviously there was back in until 2005 an historic stand which was at this location, the old wooden stand, which was demolished, obviously, because it was deemed to be unsafe. Next slide, Ian, please. And then, so this was one coming from the town. So you can see, obviously, the first image has the stand and without the barn. And then, obviously, this one has the stand and the barn location as well. And I think, is there one more? Yeah, so this is basically the new entrance on the southern boundary, adjacent to the new south stand. Obviously, and there's a ticket office as well. So that's to facilitate improved features, access in and out of the ground. There are some historic features on the existing boundary wall around the ground. I think there's blue plaques, etc. So they'll all be retained, and there's a mural as well, which I think will be upgraded and retained as well. And there'll be opportunities for further public artwork to be incorporated into the stands and the walls as well. Okay, so that's the development. So in terms of the principles of the development, obviously in the first instance, obviously this is an existing facility for elite sport. It's got historic significance in Swansea, obviously, for sporting reasons. So obviously that gives it in principle, if you like, to be retained for its existing use. But we'll just have regard to the expansion, if you like, in terms of the development plan policy. So development plan policy SI2, safeguarding community facilities. Development that would adversely affect the operational lead or loss of a community facility of local value will not be permitted unless an alternative facility of equal quality and scale to meet community needs will be provided, or it can be demonstrated that the existing provision is surplus to the needs of the community and there is sufficient provision of a similar, relatively accessible and convenient facility to serve the community nearby. So obviously it's a highly accessible location, obviously in terms of public transport and active travel. The 3G pitch obviously is meant, and the training barn will obviously meant to give it a wider community use, not just for the Ospreys, who will have a wider use. The big loss in this development obviously will be a cricket. Having said that, obviously the cricket facility will be lost at St Helens, but obviously there is a separate discussions ongoing, obviously between the council and Swansea Cricket Club to accommodate and to relocate to the Swansea Civil Service Cricket Club, which is on Sketty Lane, which is the ground behind the fire station, effectively. So there's an agreement in place to relocate the cricket and upgrade the cricket, obviously, with new changing rooms at that facility. So in that context, it's deemed to be acceptable in policy terms. There is another LDP policy about public open space provision, which basically talks about not losing or exacerbating existing deficiencies in the local area. Substantial majority open space provision will be retained, enhanced. Development can provide appropriate open space, delivers wider community benefits, or satisfactory financial contribution for compensatory provision is being provided. Yes, there is a deficiency locally within this area for open space, but as I say, it's not directly a public facility in terms of open space at the minute. So it's more, as I say, it's more used for elite sport. As I mentioned, there is a development agreement in place with Swansea Cricket Club to relocate, and it has that wider benefit potentially because it won't be just used by a single club. It'll be several clubs will have benefit from the upgraded facilities, and therefore it's deemed to be accommodated to be in accordance with policy SI 15. Okay. So other issues, the design, obviously, I mean, yes, obviously these are sporting facilities, they're stands effectively, aren't they? But in terms of the scale of development, it's deemed to be acceptable at this lawful historic site. Obviously the facilities will be upgraded. And in that context, obviously the design placemaking is deemed to be acceptable. From a heritage point of view, there are a number of historic assets within the vicinity, a number of historic buildings, including Patty Pavilion. Victoria Park is a historic park and garden. Development has been accompanied by heritage impact assessment to have regard to these facilities to assess the impact. It's been assessed by a council's placemaking heritage team lead, and they agreed with conclusions that there won't be any harm. Likewise, there's been the consultation with CADU in terms of the historic park, and they agree that that there will be no detrimental impact in terms of the scale of the development. As I say, South Stand will be new, but to some extent it'll albeit a different design, but it to some extent it'll sort of replace obviously the historic South Stand, which was previously in this location. The boundary walls are of local significance. Obviously, they will be retained and substantially upgraded as well. So, in terms of heritage, it's deemed to be acceptable. Flood risk is an issue. Obviously, located close to Swansea Bay. Flood consequence assessment has been submitted. It is zone 3, so obviously it's vulnerable to flooding. But obviously it's regarded, so this is a new development, so it's a redevelopment, sorry, not a new development, and that context is deemed to be acceptable. It obviously is a less vulnerable development, albeit there will be people obviously come into large games. But in the context of the risk within the FCA, then the conclusion is that it meets the requirements within the new 1015 NRW. As I say, I've got no objection to the development. Highways issues, again, supported by transport statement, road safety audit, and also travel plan. Car parking, obviously, there will be some restricted parking on site, so it'll depend on existing parking facilities in the vicinity, i.e. the REC, which obviously accommodates somewhere in the region of 630 spaces. So obviously that would need to be available when there's a big match on, otherwise it could cause issues, obviously. So there'll be a management issue there to accommodate, allow the parking to take place. Other than that, obviously, there is accommodation for EV charging, cycle stands, etc., to accommodate within the grounds. I mentioned the floodlighting. Obviously, the historic floodlighting columns will be replaced by a new system. They'll be centrally located at the edges of the ground, and they'll be designed up to modern facilities with light spill, obviously reduced, focused on the ground. And it's been demonstrated that in terms of light spill pollution, there'll be a significant benefit from the existing operation. So obviously that will benefit local residents, local area, and ecology issues as well. Residential amenity, there are residential properties obviously bounded by the ground along Bryn Road with the North Bank and along Gorse Avenue on the eastern boundary. The new canopy will potentially impact views of the game, potentially, albeit I think at the scale of it won't impact the views across Swansea Bay. And moreover, the physical separation and the scale of that canopy has been demonstrated not to have an impact on the amenity of those properties. Likewise, the training barn, whilst it'll be quite a large facility, that's been designed to mitigate that impact, which largely will be on the sort of Pine End properties of the properties along Goss Lane, which are St Helens Avenue, King Edward Road, etc. So in those terms, it's, as I mentioned, the reduced floodlighting issue. So in terms of residential amenity, it's deemed to be an acceptable proposal. Ecology reports have been done, no real impact. There's to be a loss of 3 trees at the southern boundary. They'll be replaced by additional trees, so therefore there's a net benefit. So in principle, developing existing sports grounds accord with national, local planning policies. The principle of enhancing the facilities to an elite rugby stadium supported and aligns with Swansea City Bay Campus's project to add value to the region in terms of sports and health, etc. It will contribute to economic growth, regeneration of Swansea Bay City region, and therefore it's deemed to be acceptable with no real issues which will warrant refusal. So recommendation is obviously for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, David. Okay, put the agent with us. It was anyway. Mr. John, if you'd like to address the committee, please. And then that's followed by Lance Bradley. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. The application is, of course, recommended for approval, and given this and that it is more important to hear from the Ospreys direct, I'll keep my planning issue speech brief. As members will be aware, this application seeks the redevelopment of an existing site and facility that has been in operation for a considerable time and has a considerable capacity even without the proposals the subject of this application. It's against that background and baseline that the application should be evaluated. Without repeating the content of the report before you or the comprehensive officer presentation, your officers have carefully and closely assessed the application and conclude the proposals would provide significant regeneration and redevelopment, which supports wider council objectives. As such, the principle of development is therefore wholly supported and encouraged by both national and local planning policy. A significant number of positive economic, environmental and social benefits have been identified to arise from the proposals. Moreover, officers have deemed the proposed scheme is acceptable in a wide range of technical respects. This reflects and is a product of the detailed and comprehensively evidenced application submission. As covered by officers, the drainage consultation response has been addressed, whilst on a related matter, NRW have raised no objection in flood risk terms. So to conclude, and in line with your officer's conclusions and recommendation, the development is in accord with the aims and objectives of planning policy. Your officers and statutory consultees have found that the scheme is suitable and acceptable in all respects, and the application is recommended for approval accordingly. I therefore respectfully urge you to support the officer recommendation and approve the application as such. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lance Bradley. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Ospreys. I just want to say thank you for your time and for inviting us along today. The St Helens redevelopment is a really important part of the future of not just Ospreys, but Swansea Rugby Club, Swansea University Rugby, and the community rugby in and around Swansea. The community aspect of it is a really important part of what we want to do. We don't want to just be the elite sports club, rugby club in the city. We want to be the hub of the community. We want to be the hub of the community for rugby right across the board. So schools, local clubs, all the way up to through our age grade, through Swansea RFC, and for our elite men's team, and hopefully at some point an elite women's team as well. We're hugely excited about the possibility of moving to and redeveloping a ground like St Helens. It's you don't need me to tell you, it's an incredibly iconic ground. And when people have said to me, you know, how does it feel to be moving to a new stadium? I always say to them, we're not moving to a new stadium, we're moving to a really old stadium. And we will completely respect the history of the place and feel very proud to be part of what we hope is the next phase of the history of St Helens. And I can also tell you that, you know, we know that we're in uncertain times, shall we say, with Welsh rugby. When is it ever not the case? But the opportunity to move to St Helens will be a significant factor in ensuring the future of professional rugby in Swansea. So, you know, again, with respect, we very much hope that you do approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor May is one of the ward members.
Is that better? Loud and clear. Brilliant. Thank you, Chair, for the invitation to address the committee. I speak as a neighbour of 29 years to the ground, and I've seen it very busy with many matches, both cricket and rugby, through the times. Unfortunately, we are going to be losing the cricket. However, that's not just driven by ourselves. It's obviously driven by Glamorgan's decision not to play as much first-class cricket as they used to, or if any now, it's totally disappeared. Other things we're going to lose, a little bit of trivia for you. The corner floodlight on the Finsbury Terrace Gorse Lane corner is actually the tallest freestanding floodlight in Europe, or it was, or it is when it gets taken down. I think the new lighting system will be of benefit, and it looks to be very well thought through. We had the pleasure of the Ospreys offering us a presentation fully explaining the makeup of the stands. For my three ward colleagues went along to that too. Also, that was impressed was that they were willing to take on local knowledge, where they had a consultation in the ground as well, which was very well received too. I think the developers in this case have been responsible because they've actually had a dialogue rather than a monologue with both the local ward members and the community as well. I do share Obviously, the concern, which is for something outside this committee, I suppose, of possibly caveats in the lease regarding the potential of what's happening with the WRU, and I hope that the council's interests would be safeguarded in that regard. Not a planning issue, though. It's going to be about the right size for the area if we're talking about impact on the community. 8,000 capacity shouldn't really be much of a shock horror or a drain. We have similar crowds of firework displays. We've always had a facility offering similar capacities, if not greater capacities. Possibly more people travelled or staggered on foot because there were hostelries in the area at the time after games. One concern that I do have is that of the implementation of a travel plan. As you know, I'm not sure what the status of the travel plan is with the Swansea.com stadium at the moment. Does it exist? But what I do know is when you're going to a midweek game there, and you want to travel by bus, the first bus is 45 minutes after the game finishes at 10:30. And particularly for away supporters, there's no way of getting to the station. So I notice on condition 15, if a travel plan could actually be implemented on occupation rather than I think it's the time scale is a bit lax on that front, but with particular attention being paid to transportation of people away from evening midweek games. Because that's when the frequency of buses are less. So that's something we'd like to see. I like the idea of the phased application. It shows prudent sense of not running before we can walk on this. At the presentation, there was potential to, in the future, expand the Mumbles Road stand. We've covered the effect of the bonus that Bryn Road residents have enjoyed, which will be taken away from them because they're going to have a roof outside their unfettered view. There. Little suggestions, possibly condition 12 regarding biodiversity. You've got the long established and historic St Gabriel's Walk, which goes down the side of the stadium. Possibly there might be something we might suggest when it comes to possibly a lighter beige coloured surfacing or something to open the area up a bit and make it sort of less gloomy. I do not know whether that would be incorporated in the planning condition, or it was certainly incorporated when we Bay members had a discussion with somebody from the Swansea Bay strategy recently. So I don't know if there's going to be any linkage to that from a planning point of view. Apart from that, I'm fully behind this and really look forward to obviously the evolution and the next chapter in our dear St Helens ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much. Can I just carry on from something that Councillor May said about the travel plan? And he actually mentioned the fireworks as well, which I was going to mention. I mean, it says there's only 100 spaces on, I think it's on the rec, and that there's some spaces within the ground. But when you're talking about 6,000 people coming, when it's fireworks night, they have a traffic plan, which we can't see here at the moment, where they close the streets off. And I don't know if that's going to, I know they do at Swansea.com stadium for the football a lot of time, you know, before and after. And we're talking again about narrow streets around there. And I just wondered if that is in the travel plan. And also, it was very nice to hear that the applicants have been working with the residents. But is there any way you can have a residents consultative forum going forward, and probably the ward members, so that they can we've done it on other applications, and with this I think it would keep the residents on board if that could be arranged. I think that's very good. And do you want me to propose about the lighter coloured surface for the walkway if that's possible? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I fully support this application and the comments of Councillor Jones and Councillor May. Just a quick one. The officer mentioned there's a shop incorporated in this. I'm just wondering what the size of that shop is and if there's a class use attached to it.
Yes, just an observation, really. Chair, fully supportive of the application. I think it's wonderful. Swansea have a tremendous football stadium and hopefully a tremendous rugby ground. Yeah, my concern is really the question is around really about the highways there. Because where the ground is situated, which comes at the back of it, as I know it, which comes off Bryn Road, Finsbury Terrace, and King Edward Road. There's quite a nasty bend there. I'm just wondering, under the assessment carried out by highways, are there any measures, going to be additional measures put in there for the interest of highway safety and pedestrian safety? Because within the report as well, there's mention about outside broadcast vehicles actually mounted in the pavement, because on Ghost Lane, which is obviously a very, very, very narrow road. Thank you, Chair.
Sit down. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Being a total football fan, this is still very exciting to me, because it's not just for the benefit of Swansea, it's for the benefit of the county of Swansea as well. For the because I know where I live, a certain player is playing for the Ospreys at the moment, and I'm still talking to him. Yes, disagree with some of the parking is one of the things. And when Mike White brought it up, I thought he was over the moon, because a lot of the parking is moving from his area down into Swansea, because he's always complaining about the parking up there. Yeah, like I said, it is exciting, and I know when we look at things like this, we think, oh, this will be all right for next season, but I know that's not right. I don't know how long it's going to take, but and I like this the big stand with a bar and everything in there. I think that's excellent, because that's what brings the money into the club as well, and it draws more people in. So yeah, fantastic, and I'm going to support it, obviously. Thank you.
Very much all. No one else got their hand up to speak? Nobody on screen. Dave, a few points there.
Yeah, there is a travel plan submitted with the application, so obviously it does incorporate various measures to reduce the impact of cars and obviously to manage traffic, people around the ground as well. So the reason it's sort of to be upgraded, if you like, so that it's very much seen as an evolving document. So it's not sort of on day one, it's going to do this and no, whatever. I think it's to monitor the situation and improve the situation as things go on. So yes, I mean, it does need to look at things like late night matches. Obviously, if public transport does stop, it needs to address those type of issues. I think there is mention of a park and ride potential. And yeah, again, it needs to manage traffic around the manage traffic for the ability of pedestrians vacating the ground, obviously, and before and after the game. So those type of issues are important, and they will or should be incorporated into the travel plan as we move forward. There was mention of upgrade of a walkway outside the ground. I mean, condition 12 is ecological enhancement, so I don't think it's appropriate in that context. I mean, that's more to do with obviously ecology. So we can look potentially if there are elements to in terms of improve access in and out of the ground. Obviously, yeah, that's something we can look at. Obviously, as I said, there are some improvements. Obviously, most of the existing entrances, exits out of the ground are being retained and are being improved as well. So that may be something we can look at in conjunction with that. You mentioned residents forum, Mary. It can be done. I'd rather it was done outside the planning permission, to be honest with you. But I mean, that's something that has to be agreed, obviously, with well, obviously we own the ground, so we'll continue to own the ground. So doesn't necessarily need to be. I mean, it's something to be agreed potentially through the lease agreement potentially. Obviously that's something I think, as was explained in the presentation by the team, that there's been widespread pre-application engagement with the local community, and hopefully that'll be retained as well after the development as well. So that could be done. As I say, it has been conditioned before. I can think of something I was involved with, which I wasn't, hopefully, again, but there we go. So it could be conditioned if you wanted to, but again, I prefer it not to be. The shop Peter Black mentioned, I don't have a figure offhand without looking through the application. It's a club shop basically. It's not substantial. It's very small, and it will only essentially be open on match days. Is my understanding. So it'll be it would be A1 basically, but not that that matters in terms of its context as such. But yeah. Again, Mike White mentioned highway safety. Yeah, I mean that's something which there's no physical improvements being proposed as part of this deal, other than the existing entrance into the stadium on Gorse Lane that's been widened to accommodate large vehicles, and there might be some improvements at the junction onto the highway. Other than that, there's no physical improvements being proposed. As I say, the traffic management issue can be picked up as part of the travel plan. Again, the parking, as I say, yeah, that's something which needs to be managed, obviously. I mean, it's been mentioned, I think, that sometimes the rec is used for circus activities. It comes every year. What we can't have, obviously, if we're relying on the rec for parking for a big match day, and it's already being used under some prior agreement for something else, then obviously that causes a problem. So there needs to be some agreement in place. I assume that will be covered by the lease, to be honest with you. So, but otherwise, I think in terms of location, it is sustainable. That there are public transport facilities in the daytime, albeit they peter off into the nighttime. But obviously, it is within walking distance as well back into the city. So, and it does obviously it has that historic usage. Obviously, 8,000 people. I mean, I can remember going to games here which were far exceeded that number. So obviously things managed then. So hopefully, they can be managed again. So thank you.
Other hands up to speak then? No? Okay, so you see the recommendation there is to approve. So if you would take that vote, then please, Hugh.
Thank you all. So councillors, if you can indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Meyer Baker.
For.
Peter Black.
For.
Phil Downing.
For.
Mary Jones.
For.
Mike Lewis.
For.
Mark Tribe.
For.
Mike White.
For.
Andrew Williams.
For.
Paul Lloyd.
For.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. And got 2 lights on them. Okay, thank you very much. And then the moving on to item 6, which is regarding Fairwood Terrace.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Check, look like a 2-minute rest break. Will that be okay?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a 2-minute break then, yeah? Do you want to? Yeah, right. Thank you.
I just wanted to see. I like that. Things we've got a big collection today.
Oh, Okay, then, thank you, folks. So we commence vote hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report before members relates to an appeal that's been submitted for land adjacent to Fairwood Terrace in Gowerton. Members may recall on the 4th of March this year, they resolved that the ward members defend the council's decision on appeal. What's become apparent during the appeal process is that the ward members are unable to reflect their constituents' views. They can only defend the decision of the council and can't introduce additional reasons. And I think from the correspondence I've seen and discussions with the ward members, they do want to raise issues which they would be entitled to do as ward members, but not as the local planning authority. As a result, we're asking committee to not require ward members to defend the appeal and to nominate a member to work with officers on the appeal decision. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Black.
I did actually tell Councillor David Hopkin I would do this, but I wasn't at the meeting on the 4th of March because it was my wife's birthday and I was away. So I'm happy to be the committee's representative. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to volunteer?
We'll just support him.
But I will require some support, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
All right then. So, well, you can see the recommendation there, and we have volunteer. That would be Councillor Black. Well, do we take the vote on that? And you can see the recommendation.
If it's all for you.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone's in favour? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The abstentions, just go through it. The abstention.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay then. Anyone against? Any abstentions? None. That's carried. Thank you so much. And then on to the next one, two-stage.
Thank you, Chair. This follows on from the last item, really, is that in the committee report, there is a two-stage voting process. And in that process, the option exists to defer where members don't accept the officer recommendation. And that works both ways. Recommendation could be refusal and members think an application should be approved, and vice versa, recommendation for approval and committee feel that the application should be refused. At the moment, there's an option to defer for further information, and in my experience, it's almost inevitable the application is deferred because we want to bring back either reasons with a report or conditions if the application is to be approved. So the first change we're looking for is to make it an automatic deferral with committee indicating reasons why they think an application should be referred, and we'll bring a report back with advice on those reasons, or if they're minded to approve certain conditions they may wish to attach to a planning permission, and we'd also consider whether any additional conditions would be required on the application. But it just gives a little bit of breathing space to be able to give you that more information to inform the decision you make. And then the second change we're asking you to consider is that if committee do refuse an application, contrary to recommendation, when the decision is made to refuse it and the reasons are determined, to nominate a member of committee to work with officers similar to the Fairwood Terrace appeal we just discussed. So that would allow the officers dealing with the appeal to get a feel of what committee's views were and help develop the authority's case when it comes to appeal. So the report is asking that the two-stage voting process be amended to include those two changes. And if that is accepted today, that would then apply from next committee. Thank you, Chair. Next committee.
Next committee. Well, that way if you like. So, thank you, Ian. Oh, come on. No. Anyone wish to speak on that? No, yeah, because it's been moved in. Somebody second? All in, yeah, that be adopted. Thank you very much. Can we then just all four? Any four, sorry. Anyone against? No abstentions? Okay, thank you. That is carried. And thank you all very much.